Joined now by Dr. Jerome Kim in Seoul, Korea. He's the Director General of the International Vaccine Institute. Good morning, Dr. Kim. I know you're in the ROK now, which is seeing an increase in infections there and restrictions are going back into effect. Is this a new normal, these cycles?
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head. We can suppress the virus, but until there's a vaccine solution, it will be difficult to keep from having these cycles of suppression and outbreak and suppression and outbreak.
So there are a number of vaccines in the works around the world. In your opinion, which is the most promising at this moment?
Well, I think all of the vaccines that are currently in phase 3 have some data that would suggest that the vaccines may prevent infection or disease from COVID-19. Certainly, the whole inactivated vaccines, similar to the vaccines that Sinovac or Sinopharm have currently developed, which are currently in phase 3, are among the vaccines in the lead right now. But it could be, or I hope, that multiple vaccines will actually show efficacy, or efficacy sufficient for regulatory authorities around the world to approve the vaccines for more general use.
You mentioned two Chinese biotech firms there. We know that they're working with other countries around the world. How significant do you think that level of cooperation is, especially when you think about the cost and accessibility issues?
This is a critical question, and the ability of Chinese companies to work outside of China, which currently doesn't have enough infections to actually test the vaccine, is critical in the development of vaccines that are safe and effective against COVID-19. Cost is definitely going to be an issue, and I think that the cooperation between Chinese companies and countries like the United Arab Emirates or Morocco or Brazil or Argentina is really going to be important as these countries allow the testing for safety and efficacy of the Chinese vaccines or any vaccines. Brazil has made other arrangements with different companies, Western companies, to also engage in phase 3 testing. It's very important that when we conceive this effort to develop a COVID-19 vaccine, we look beyond borders. We really look for vaccines that can be used around the world, that will give access to vaccine technology to countries rich and poor, and will also allow people around the world to have access to safe and effective vaccines. So organizations like CEPI, the World Health Organization, and Gavi are putting together a number of concerned countries, 150 in total, for something called COVAX. And we hope that the Chinese companies and China itself will participate and perhaps show leadership in helping to organize COVAX, which hopes to guarantee that we have 2 billion doses of vaccine available by the end of 2021.
Have tensions between Washington and Beijing affected this?
I think that companies, vaccine development companies, vaccine manufacturing companies are moving ahead despite the tensions. It's very important that this very important work continues. So you see companies from America, companies from Europe, companies from China, companies from India reaching out around the world to engage countries and universities and research centers in the testing of these critical vaccines. A number of vaccines are in phase 3, and you pointed this out. That's going to the number will increase over the next few months, and hopefully one of these vaccines, or at least one of the vaccines, will show safety and efficacy.
A large number of people have said they won't get a vaccine shot were one available, or perhaps they might hesitate to do so, and that varies in size in different communities. What are the consequences of that? Does that worry you?
When people say that they're going to refuse to take a vaccine, it's always worrisome. I think that we have to remember, though, that right now we don't actually have a vaccine in hand. I mean, I can't go to a person and say, you need to take this vaccine, which is proven to be safe and effective. And I think that it's very important that we as a scientific community or global health experts be able to say this is a vaccine that we know works. We know it works. We know it prevents infection. We know that it's safe. I mean, this is true of all vaccines, not just the COVID vaccine. And it's very important that we not get ahead of ourselves and make claims of safety or efficacy before we actually have data that the vaccines are working.